Let's start off with the basic lipid panel. You can see the red value there at the top, total cholesterol. My total cholesterol flags as red. It's at 267. And the low risk category would be anything below 200. So my cholesterol is concerningly high. If a health insurance adjuster were to see this cholesterol, they would charge me more for a health insurance premium based on that cholesterol. However, when you actually look at what that cholesterol is made up of, you need to pay close attention, because high cholesterol in and of itself is not a risk factor for cardiovascular disease, and study after study has shown us this. What is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease is when that cholesterol becomes oxidized, such as can be the case when your inflammation markers are high, or your blood glucose is dysregulated, or even when you have a very high amount of triglycerides, or what would be deemed an unfavorable triglyceride to HDL ratio. So I don't just look at cholesterol, I look at all the other components that accompany that cholesterol to see whether or not high cholesterol is actually putting me or someone I'm working with at risk for some type of cardiovascular disease or incident in the future. Now, in this case, you will note that below that total cholesterol number is my LDL. My LDL is at 102. Considering that a low risk for LDL is considered by modern medicine to be 100 or below, my LDL is actually not that high. Now, granted, and I'll get to this in a moment, I'm a bigger fan of looking at proteins associated with LDL and the LDL particle size rather than the LDL itself. But you'll note that really the reason my cholesterol is so high is because my HDL levels are through the freaking roof. They're at 151. Now, HDL cholesterol is a scavenger of excess cholesterol. It brings extra cholesterol from arteries and from your body back to your liver to be metabolized. It's transporting cholesterols. This means that in most cases, a relatively high level of HDL is assisting with cholesterol clearance. And research has shown that an HDL cholesterol greater than 60, what would be called milligrams per deciliter, mg per dl, can indeed help to protect against heart disease. Although I should throw in there the caveat that there is some pretty compelling research that has emerged over the past 2 years showing that more HDL is not necessarily better. And the reason for this increased risk of mortality and cardiovascular disease associated with very high HDL levels is because a high level of HDL could mean that your body is having to carry a lot of metabolites back to the liver due to a state of constant inflammation. And so this leads to one of the rabbit holes that inevitably arise when you're looking over your labs. And that would be, well, my HDL is through the roof. What the heck is going on with my inflammation? Do I need to be concerned from an inflammatory standpoint? If you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see on the panel that I ran that I did indeed test all my inflammatory markers, which would be hsCRP, homocysteine, and fibrinogen. I will get to those in a moment, but the long story short is they're all rock bottom. I have very low levels of inflammation.